This is a CW Spiral, a podcast run by two Barties and a Bughead. We're your hosts, Sabrina Reed,
Michael Patterson,
and Reed Gaudens,
bringing you history about the network, the latest news, and in-depth spoiler-filled discussions of some of our favorite shows on the CW. So finally, we get to talk about Flash today. I mean, we did in a spoiler-free way, but that's not as fun as doing it with spoilers because you always have to watch your mouth. But before we launch into what we're watching for the week, we do have to talk about Superman and Lois news that we had inadvertently skipped over last week, which was that James Gunn had said that, Superman and Lois can get another season or two. DC Studios isn't going to stand in their way. That, of course, doesn't mean that the CW is automatically going to renew the show if the ball's in their court, but it does mean that we won't get any cancellations because DC Studios wants to move towards their cinematic universe that connects TV, film, and comics too. Did he say that, Michael?
I believe so, and video games and animation. So we're having one big cohesive DC universe. It'll be.
Are we?
It will try to be a change of pace. But I think this was the vote of confidence that Superman and Lois fans needed, because yes, it's not the absolute surefire renewal we automatically were hoping for, because at the end of the day, the new season hasn't premiered yet. We'll take what we can get. But the fact is that, yes, the CW cancelled a lot of shows recently, but DC has also been out here cancelling a lot of shows recently. So if DC Studios, the new DC Studios, has a vote of confidence in Superman and Lois and is happy for it to continue for a little while longer, I think that's definitely going to put a lot of fans at ease, because there's just been so much uncertainty at the moment. And I know the final decision is up to the CW, and we'll get to that in a little second. But I just did want to lead with the fact that we have good news at last about a CW show. When was the last time you could say that?
When All American was renewed.
It was an island.
A little bit. I'm going to let you guys have the optimism on this one, because although, as I tweeted, I'm holding them to this. Blood oath, blood contract, hand to the Bible, I'm holding you to it. But I just don't trust any of these men that are running these companies. So I'll believe it when I see it. I want it to happen. But yeah, I hope we get 2 more seasons.
I hope so too. I think that I want to be confident because they're also doing so much promo after CW shows that are airing, to the point that when The Flash went off, instead of doing the lead in for Kung Fu like they usually do, it was don't miss the premiere of Superman and Lois on March 14th. And I was like, you have a new show that just came back. Maybe we should leave that room for Kung Fu. But they're really pushing Superman and Lois, which, I mean, I'll take it. Even that ugly little ad that's to the side sometimes that just pops up and is obnoxious, and then everything else goes back to the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, but I feel like I'm glad they're promoting that show, because I feel like they have a lot riding on that. This is one of their 2 most watched shows, and everyone seems to have automatically assumed that Walker is safe as houses. We cannot guarantee that. Nothing is safe as houses in this era, but there's been so much confusion over whether Superman and Lois is safe, because on paper it should be. It is their first/second most watched show. Why wouldn't you save that one when you're trying to get people to watch on the night? And that is a show that is getting more people to watch on the night. The other issue with that was the DC side of things. So if they're happy for it to go on for another season, we're at least 50% of the way there. Now, I don't trust the CW, so that other 50% isn't exactly certain at this point. But I mean, getting 50% of the way there is a heck of a lot closer to the end goal than we were even a couple of weeks ago. So I'll take the win for now. Doesn't mean it's going to put all my concerns at ease. Absolutely not. But the interesting thing is that if CW decides to pass on it because it's too expensive, we just found out recently that the show apparently cost $5 million per episode, and this is the same network that wanted to reduce budgets to under $1 million per episode. How do you level that up, if you know what I mean? How do you weigh that out? So if the CW decides not to move ahead with it, the ball is in Warner Brothers and DC Studios' court. Will they produce it for HBO Max? They can do that. They own all the rights to the characters. But would they want to do that when this is the same HBO Max that's cancelling DC properties and then apparently leasing them out to other studios to make, like the animated show Batman Caped Crusader? It's not cancelled, but they're going to give other studios the chance to make it. So would HBO Max willingly pick Superman and Lois up and produce it when another company could do it instead? Again, there's still an awful lot of writing on it, and it's still so uncertain at this point in time. But I'm just going to say that I'm going to take the win for now and enjoy Superman and Lois's 3rd season, because this show was envisioned for 5 seasons. James Gunn and Peter Safran seem like they're happy to let it continue for those 5 seasons, because Superman Lois should finish its run around 2024, 2025, which is when the new Superman movie would come out, which would kickstart the new DCU. So it would let that like little remnant of the Arrowverse, the CW, DC TV era carry on until the new one starts. And at the end of the day, you got to plug some holes. So why not let the most successful and critically acclaimed show carry on for a little bit longer?
And the good thing is, if things go south, we have the receipts, we have the quotes. Sound bites are forever, baby.
That is true. But as far as the CW making decisions, though, I wonder if they're making it based on projections, right? Because All American being renewed first was a surprise, considering the numbers that Walker is drawing in comparison, but also they're very steady. And Winchesters keeps falling. Walker Independence is trying to rise back up to what it was, but did fall out of the, on average, million views. And Walker is always hitting 1 million, though. That's the thing that, like, I thought it would be like Walker All American. So it's like, it's not like All American is an outlier. It's not the surprise renewal like Nancy Drew was last year. But it is interesting. I was like, I wonder if they're thinking, besides the sports angle, thinking about, you know, projections towards May, like what is everything going to look like? Is the Winchesters going to keep falling? Do they expect Walker Independence to fall? Do they? I'm not sure if they want to go with Walker. Like I mean, it's a new, not era, because we've been here for a while, but it's a weird place to be in.
It seems like All American's always been one of them kind of like steady shows. Like it of course its initial audience fell off, but once it found its baseline audience, it hasn't really lost it. The ratings tend to stick in and around the same place. So I always said last year that the networks needs a more of a surefire hit, and All American seems to fit that bill. It seems to be that the new CW thinks the same thing. The question is whether they renewed it based on sports, whether they renewed it based on that warmth that the old CW had towards it. Who knows at this point? But it seems like a piece of the CW furniture, so I'm glad for it that it gets to stick around a while longer. It's just when it's a steady show and not one of the top shows, you wonder what the criteria into making that decision was and how it will affect the future decisions they make when you only have 2 to 3 more slots to fill.
I think it moved to, if it's not moved back into the number 3 spot on the network, it's back there now because of Walker falling. Oh, well, not Walker, but Winchester's falling.
And wasn't an All American like the top show in the demo?
Yes, but I think they keep tying. They so I think were they 0.3 or were they 0.2?
I don't know, but that can be another selling point too, that the higher the demo rating is, the more it appeals to older audiences. So, and we know they're trying to cater to an older audience, so maybe that's going to factor in as well.
Maybe. But Winchester's is hitting a good demo too. It's the 18 to 49 demo, right? So they're trying to get towards the 49 side of the demo.
How did they know that?
But since we're on the topic of Winchesters, we might as well just jump right in to this episode. I don't know what the Accretor are doing. We're nearly finished with the first season, and the big bads are doing nothing for me.
They're doing a lot of talking. Yeah. That's about it. Yeah, I'm eager to see what you guys thought of this episode, because we didn't talk about this one much beforehand like we did with the last 2. So what did you think of it?
I don't know.
Oh, you're not alone.
I don't know what I thought. I think I liked it better than last week, because I feel like it had a little bit more momentum in it. But I think I'm ultimately still, as Sabrina said, like kind of confused on the big bad. Maybe that's a me problem, for not connecting the dots and like keeping it all straight in my mind. But like I'm not invested in the Accretor at all. So whenever they bring it up, I'm like, who are they? I'm that Kiki Palmer meme when she's like, now who the hell are they? Like, I don't know.
I think for me, it's like, I remember when we first started out, I think this might have been episode 2, when you don't meet who Britta's character yet, but she's the one with the hood on, and she's walking and they're all following her through the woods. And I remember being very excited about where the story was going to go. And then now that we're towards the end of the season, I just feel like we've lost the thread. Like the thread got lost somewhere in those woods because they're doing a lot of talking about how like the Akrita lost their world. I believe that's what's going on. And so they want to take over this one and they want to replace humans. And I'm like, okay, it just doesn't feel dire. They're doing like shady things. It almost feels, I kind of wish that the show had actually been Monster of the Week for the majority of its run, and then they seeded in the Akrita, because now we're doing like both in Lada and Carlos are off doing their own thing that ties back into that storyline, but then so are Mary and John, but I don't care about Hobbs and his backstory, who we never met this man, and now he's here and he's like,
was he
he
like
knew John's dad.
the doctor villain guy?
Yeah.
See, my favorite part about that was that halfway through the episode, I realized that was the actor that played Mr. Sheffield in The Nanny. I didn't recognize him at first, and then halfway through the episode, like, it was his voice. He has a very distinct voice, and as somebody who grew up watching The Nanny and still watches it every night before bed, I was like, "Is that Mr. Sheffield?" And it was.
I like that element of it to an extent because it felt very much kind of like a Buffy kind of episode, about this random villain that came in out of nowhere and suddenly the heroes are in jeopardy, and believe me, we'll get to that. But that had like eerie kind of like gruesome quality to it that a show like Buffy would have had when they did a Villain of the Week episode, but it wasn't a Villain of the Week episode. And yet again, it feels like Carlos and Lata had the more high stakes, engaging season-long story, and it was the subplot of the episode. So I don't really know where we're going with this. The Akrita keeps getting bumped down to subplot, whereas these like high-intensity Villain of the Week stories end up being the main plot. They only seem to revolve around John and Mary. They find themselves in mortal peril all the time. Heck, one of them died last week and came back to life. You know, it's like all these Villain of the Week stories have higher stakes than the main storyline, and what are we supposed to do with that? Like, where is that going to go? The thing I did like about the Carlos and Lata storyline was bringing Bridget Regan back, because heck, she sold that. What a great performance she gave. But to Sabrina's point, I remember when we first were introduced to that character and they didn't have the actor playing the role yet, and it was just the hooded figure. It very much set her up to be the queen. And now we're supposed to believe that she wasn't the queen. Maybe was she some high-ranking lieutenant? I don't know. But she has all these memories that knows where the queen was. Don't know what they're doing with the storyline. There's a lot of good.
Do we know the queen?
No,
not
yet.
If the queen, if they like reveal it, like who the queen is, and we don't know who it is, I feel like that would be kind of a letdown. Like How I Met Your Mother, when they like revealed the mother, and we were like, we don't know her. It was just like we'd never met her before in the show. It was just some random woman who was great, by the way. But I just feel like it's going to be anticlimactic if they like panned the queen, and it's like, okay, I don't know. Happy for them, but who are they?
I really wanted to be a big CW get when they decided to put the queen in a human body. Like, if it's not Bridget, fine, but like it needs to be someone like around the same caliber or higher, someone that's going to have people screaming when we get to the end, if they ever do put the queen in a human body. Because right now, like the most we've seen of her is a red glow. And I think that was like the mid-season finale or something. And now it's like, it feels like we're floating, we're coasting as we try to move towards more about the queen. Not to skip to the end.
Let's do it. Let's skip to the end.
And since we're talking about like the Akrita stuff, I wish that we had been given the opportunity to actually care about Kyle. That ending happened and I was like, well, John's in trouble and he didn't do anything. But it didn't like, I didn't go, oh no, Kyle's dead. He's been stabbed in the heart by himself. Like, it just didn't.
We were like, finally, good.
Like,
I don't fully understand why they brought him back last week just to kill him this week. We didn't have enough time to really like have an interest in his return at all.
Yeah.
Like you said, like he died and framed John. It just solidified, it confirmed how much we disliked that character.
When I said the exes usually die, this is not what I meant. It was very anticlimactic. There was no like emotional investment in it. It was somewhat clever that they've been kind of leaning into like maybe the fact that John has a dark side and that Kyle/Akrita person really capitalized on that. But how does Kyle/Akrita person know any of this? He hasn't been following the story that closely. We, on the other hand, have been. So I don't understand the whole like connection there. It was clever enough, but then they had the like whole like Millie walking in at the end and the shock panning as though she's ever going to believe otherwise. And I'm sure they'll make her believe otherwise next week, that maybe he was the one who did it, and they'll have to convince her otherwise. But I don't know. I said a minute ago, there's an awful lot of good in this storyline, but I just feel like the execution has let an awful lot of it down, if that makes sense.
There's a narrative imbalance. It's like it tries to be the procedural monster villain of the week, and then it tries to have like the big season-long arc, and there's a way to balance that a little bit cleaner than the show has been doing. And I think it was more successful in the beginning of the season than it is now, because it's kind of like, decide what are you? Are you doing the villain of the week and then, as Sabrina said, just like seeding in the Akrita stuff? It seems like it's trying to do both, and it's not servicing either lane very well.
And it's like frustrating, like really frustrating, because there's ways in which this could have been fixed.
And to use recent examples, the idea of an entity coming in from a parallel universe trying to invade the main plane of existence, I've seen in the last year in Stranger Things, I've seen the last year in Miss Marvel, and both of those were done at a much higher quality than this. And I think the thing that's really letting us down is the fact that the show has not figured out what kind of format it wants to follow. So we're supposed to be getting a lot super invested in these like high intensity villain of the week storylines. Meanwhile, the main story gets pushed to the background over and over and over again. That it's starting to feel like just maybe a 40-minute, it could have been resolved in a better 40-minute villain of the week episode, because at least then it would have gotten full attention. Whereas now it's getting pushed to the background. They're talking about how the world is ending and yet completely carrying on as normal as if it's not.
What world?
Exactly.
Urgency's not there.
It just,
Don't get me wrong. I love this show for what it is. But like I said last week, sometimes when you like something or love something, it's okay to be disappointed when it's not like at the level that you wish it could be. And I do think that if we binged the show, it would be there'd be a better payoff than this like on a week, off a week, and just seeing it week to, I don't know, I just think it would be better binged. So hopefully in the future I can test that out and watch it with a different set of eyes, having known everything that happened.
Maybe, and maybe some of the plots will come back together too, because so when you have the opening flashback to, I think it was 1957, and we meet Dorothea. We don't know who she is at first, but I wanted that to be Millie's mom. Just did. And didn't turn out to be his Hobbs' wife. But I was like, oh, the Akrita have been around for quite some time, and I was like, did we know that? Because I feel like we're losing, because bits and pieces of the Akrita's story is coming out. I feel like we're losing important pieces. Like, how long have they been here? How long have the hunters been aware of them? Like, is this a thing that's been going on for decades, hundreds of years, thousands of years? Why do they think they're closer to taking over the world? Like, I just want to know their motivations beyond the fact they need a host planet.
They did, and they vaguely lean into that in the pilot episode about how they'd been here before and the box shooed them away, and that was the end of that. And you're like, okay, but then first of all, how are they starting to break through again, and why were some of them left behind in the first place? So in the 20 years between the Dorothea flashback and the current storyline, that means that there have been Akrita entities left on the Earth, but they've done nothing since then, and only now they're bringing the Queen out. How did the Queen, whatever it is, whatever she is or he is or whatever it looks like, still going for the giant spider creature because they were looking up at it, and what humans stays underground for no reason? So how did it get through? Is there a gateway? Is there a like portal to the upside down? You know what I mean? And we're running out of time to get answers to these, and I worry that they're going to condense it into a quick 40-minute plot, and it'll not have the satisfaction we were hoping for.
Ada was gone again, right?
Yeah, she was.
You
mentioned her though.
Oh, it's not enough. But wait, what did you say about Dean?
I'm worried that like it's going to be in the finale and Dean's going to have all the answers rather than the story leading us to the answers. Because they were talking about him at the, I don't know, was that a bar, a grill, wherever the creator were complaining about human food. They had the picture of Dean on the table, and I was like, oh, interesting. Where are we going with this? And it's like, we need to go get him. I was like, oh, well, I guess we're not. That's the one piece of information we're going to have for the episode. Back to what they're doing over at the hideouts.
And how did the Akrita know he exists? Like, I know Sam knows he exists and that John at Mary found out he exists. When did the Akrita end up in his trail? Like, did we get answers for that, or is that just kind of
Yeah.
happened?
I think they've been following him, but we have no reason for why they would have been following him for what.
The Akrita knows all, and there's no explanation as to why. I was watching that last night, and I feel like that was the moment it sunk in. I feel like Dean is going to somehow be involved in the finale, and of course that'll be a huge, big moment for Supernatural fans, and it might increase a bit of excitement. But the problem is the way the Winchesters going. It won't be a turning point for the show. It'll be the series finale. And did they wait too long to pull the trigger on that?
Yes.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And then all that build up for Sam. This is not even the episode, but all that build up for Sam, and the man is gone.
Yeah.
Like, he came and he went, and that was the end of him. There's just, the Winchesters has so much potential. I just feel like, and this obviously I would know this true or not, but I just feel like we were arguing in the writers' room about how the show should be written, and so we compromised a lot, and so we're getting like, fine, 50% monster of the week, 50% Akrita story, a little sprinkling in of John and Mary have fun, and it's like, but you needed to pick a lane.
Yeah. The show has identity issues, and it doesn't know what kind of show it wants to be. Normally, these Supernatural stuff lend themselves to villain of the week and arcs. We've seen it in Buffy, we've seen it in The Flash, for goodness sake. But I just feel like the Winchesters does not have long enough of a season in order for that format to work. The 13-episode seasons used to lend itself to more story-driven stuff, while the 22-episode seasons used to lend itself to villain of the week. The Winchesters is trying to do both with less episodes, and I just don't think it's paying off.
Yeah. And we're almost towards the end. Perhaps it'll be one of those shows where it's good in the beginning, we struggled in the middle, and then it's fire at the end.
It leaves us wanting more. I hope.
I hope.
Fingers crossed. I don't know. But any more Winchester's points?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Sorry. One thing. Mary got into college.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
that's
nice.
right.
That's nice.
Yeah, happy for her. She's probably not going to go though.
No.
That's never going to happen.
Happy for her though. At least she has the acceptance letter. We can frame it. It'll be very beautiful. But moving on to The Flash, since we now get to do our spoiler review, but Reed, I want to hear your opinion first of the episode.
Yes.
Okay, so the last time I watched it was the season 8 finale, right? That was the street meditation episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not familiar with this world of these episodes, but it didn't feel like this episode like came right after that one from if my memory serves. Like, it felt a little bit different in like a good way. It felt a little bit lighter. But yeah, I had fun with it. I liked that Iris is in it a lot more than the last time I saw. And I think she and I almost said Grant, Barry, have really good chemistry. And that was one of my favorite parts of the episode, was like seeing them get to interact, because I didn't get to see that in the last episode that I watched.
Westallen is at the core.
Yeah.
Where they need to be. But yeah, it is, you're right. I think when the episode opens, there's this throwaway line about they took a week and now we're like back to work. And I was like, you should have taken a month, but a week it is.
And Reed's totally right that it feels like far more than a week between the events of the season 8 finale and the season 9 premiere. Because the reason I think this episode felt so much different from the last one was this felt like a season 1 episode. There was so much light, there was so much joy, there was so much heart. And the Flash season 8 at the end of its run had absolutely none of that. So it's nice to see like a throwback to the beginnings. It was fun, like you both said. It was just such a like lighthearted episode, even though like time loop's probably a terrifying thing to be stuck on. But like they had fun with it, which is what the Flash always did. It made the dark seem light, and it really paid off. And I love the dynamic between Barry and Iris. I always have, but the thing that really stuck out for me is that like Barry was his like giddy, young, slightly immature season 1 self, which we haven't seen for so long. He's just been kind of going through the motions for the last 3 or 4 seasons, whereas it's nice to really just see him like back to that character we fell in love with in season 1, and I have no doubt about it that it's just because he got to spend so much time with Iris. Grant and Candace bounce off each other so great in the chemistry department, and they had so many great scenes. Really,
I love that scene with them in the pool. That was my favorite.
The way she ended days, like, did you see it? Did you see my dad? She's like, I saw it. It was, I did. I did. They're
adorable.
very cute. Yes.
It was so cute.
It's like, so Reed, that's probably the closest we're gonna get to vacation for them. They've always been trying to go. I think the first time they tried to go, they got pulled back for some type of mission, and Iris nearly lost it on, I forget which team member it was. And I think they went on vacation, and that's how they got, is that how they got Grant and Candace out for a crossover episode, Michael? Where they went on vacation?
Yeah, I think so. It was around the Christmas season, wasn't it? So it would have been around a crossover episode, yeah.
Yeah, so they did actually get on vacation. We didn't get to see it. So this is the closest we're going to see is them poolside. I do love how bright this episode was, how
it's colorful.
Very colorful, it's comedic. And it also allowed for Iris and Barry to like reconnect in a way that we haven't really been seeing on screen. Basically, it was a big old time loop date. Once they got past most of the trauma, they just decided, you know what, we're just gonna live our lives and do what we want to in the same day over and over and over again.
And it was so much fun because, first of all, speaking of the trauma, Candace's performance in that more Merlot scene, excellent. And then Grant's performance in the scene afterwards, where Joe and Cecile were trying to convince Barry that he can't be plotting out their lives by a book. Again, excellent. Just the two scenes they had back to back were amazing, and they were the two I talked about a little bit last week. There was so much human drama in this episode, not like time sickness, not like phasing in and out of existence, just so much natural human drama, and I think that's what The Flash does best.
Speaking of Cecile, much love to her, not a fan.
Well, you were right on track with the rest, like a big portion of the fandom.
When she was explaining Groundhog Day, the movie, I was like, oh, girl, I can't do it.
I think so. One of the things I felt like, I said this about Iris last season, but like it felt like busy work for Cecile in this episode. I don't see how you throwing a football with her mind was going to help strengthen her in any capacity, as she's supposed to be fighting people in the out in Central City, but we just needed that for her and Joe. I also felt like we could have just let Joe have that moment with Barry. Like, I didn't think Cecile needed to weigh in. I think we could have just sat and let Joe, because she basically just reiterated what Joe had said and added a sentence. So I was like, I just let Joe have it. He never gets to have the speeches anymore. Just let him talk to his son.
And that's kind of my issue with Cecile, is that when she was a recurring character for the first 4 seasons, great, loved it. But from season 4 onwards, they've kind of turned her into kind of like comedic, corny one-liner kind of character. And the stories are always kind of silly when they're around her. But then she has some great scenes. Like last season, she had an amazing scene with Barry. And I'm like, Cecile can be used in the right way, but the show constantly uses her in the kind of like comedic, kind of like silly kind of way, because now we know that apparently she's supposed to be the most powerful meta-human to ever exist on the planet, and we find that out because she made a coffee cup float into her hand, and like that, I think that says it all. Like, there's so much potential there with Cecile, but again, the comedy takes the front seat. And also, I find it hard to believe that Cecile could be the most powerful human in Central City or the world when the Flash literally just phased a nuclear bomb out of existence. That doesn't line up for me, but they want Cecile to be 11 basically, and we saw that in the opening scene. When I think the first of all, I really like the opening scene. I'm not like a big like Team Flash fan, but seeing them all teamed up for one more time and having the real like meta line where Barry was like, "Welcome
I knew
back."
It was going to be a dream.
Yeah, it's too good, especially when Killer Frost showed up.
Okay, wait, I have a question about her. Who is that? Who is she now? Because I thought she was going to say it, and then it just like ended.
Yeah, I know.
You know who she is?
We don't. The whole I checked last night. The whole internet was in confusion about who the character is. What's the point of the character? I will say that Caitlin is the version of Danielle Panabaker that is on the new season 7 poster of the Flash, season 9 poster of the Flash. So we have not seen the last of Caitlin, even though the storyline would like us to believe that we have. But it's the final season, of course. Caitlin will be back, but Frost probably won't. So who is this new character in the meantime? The promo for next week's episode literally just has the exact same kind of like exchange. Who are you if you're not Caitlin and Frost? So there's definitely going to be a lot of investment into who this character is. We just don't know who it is right now.
Another question. Who was the person in the like teaser tag after the ending lightning flash thing? Who is that? I was like, Batman? What is that?
That is the DC villain known as the Red Death. Now, very, 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 very quick lesson. The Red Death in DC Comics is an evil version of Batman from another universe who goes crazy and decides that he needs to do away with his villains. And the best way to do that is to steal the Flash's speed. So he straps the Flash to the Batmobile, drives into the Speed Force, and merges them both into the one super being. So it's basically a killer Batman with super speed. In this universe, however, we know for a fact that the Red Death will be played by Javicia Leslie, and it is instead a corrupt version of Batwoman. And we also know that somewhere later down the line, I think the actual Ryan Wilder Batwoman will show up to help Barry take her down. So that's very exciting. We know that there are going to be an army of new rogues this season, and the new Captain Boomerang, who we met in this episode, is one of them. But it seems like they could all, or at least Boomerang, will be working for the Red Death. So I think that's going to be the storyline in the first half of the season, and I'm really excited to see where it goes, because more Batwoman is always a good thing.
Yes, super exciting, though I will have to say Rogue is the new next level up. Like I really do think that's coming, because they said it in this episode. It was in the promo. I think Barry was telling Chilblain not to go rogue or something, which I don't want to see Chilblain either. I want to stay in the bubble of Westallen for a bit. I mean, I know that Candace had said the first 2 episodes are really Westallen heavy, so I expect that Barry and Iris's baby moon is going to carry into episode 2, even as they try to figure out who this new version of not Caitlin is, and whatever is going on with Chilblain. I just don't want to be removed from the amazingness that was this premiere to be dropped back into the same old. I really don't, especially if we're going to be doing the baby moon, where it's going to take over the majority of the season as they find their way back to where they want to be, because the trauma response this episode, classic Barry.
Yeah.
Like, we've been doing this for seasons, but it did seem like we made some progress, because they finally got to have the argument in a productive way. Usually the argument is like Iris gets mad at him for doing something that he doesn't tell her about, and then they both say something hurtful, and then we kind of just move on. And that's the end of them. So I'm glad that we got somewhere in their argument this time.
Yeah, he definitely grew. He definitely learned from it. I know we did have an issue that the main character shouldn't be doing this again 9 seasons in, but you could say the same. We shouldn't only be having these Westallen moments 9 seasons in. But like, if you can take yourself out of that mindset for a little while, the episode did everything it was supposed to. Barry learned from his mistake, probably for the final time, because I highly doubt he'll be going back down that path in the final season. It's about figuring yourself out for the last time. And we got some wonderful Westallen moments. So yeah, I like, again, if you can take yourself out of this should have happened before bubble, I just appreciated the episode for what it was, and it was just wonderful as a Westallen fan to finally see them get those so many happy moments together.
Such a weird, great episode with. Should we talk about the Chalegra, or should we bump past the Chalegra?
I will say that scene was really, really nice. I like the camera view when they finally kissed, because obviously the Flash does good kisses with the camera view. They did it with the iconic Barry and Iris one. It will never be that iconic, but I mean, I'm glad they're finally together, because it was really rough watching them dance around that for like 2 seasons. Like, we're finally here now, and it was a cute moment. This episode was very, very happy in general. So I mean, like, happy for them. Not exactly like rooting for them or anything, but like, happy for them. Glad we got that. Move on.
Oh, I would like to be done. Like, I mean, I know we're gonna do like we'll probably do the awkward date, potentially even the like meet the family at some point. But I just, with the limited amount of episodes we have, just have them flirt in the background. They don't need side plots.
No,
it's fine.
The reason this episode worked so well was the hierarchy. Like, the main characters got the main focus, obviously, because Caitlin's such a main character. She'll get a bit more focus when whatever this new Caitlin character is comes into it. Again, that's totally fine, but we do not need to start leaning on Chester and Allegra and Cecile like full time. We just don't need that. So I hope we get more episodes with kind of like pacing and hierarchy like we had in this episode. I don't want Chester and Allegra heavy episodes, please. No. 1 I'll accept, but we don't need like 5 or 6.
No, thank you. But before we wrap up the Flash, though, I think we should say two things. That those who, because I saw a lot of tweets about this, those who want the whole Barry runs back to the past becomes the lightning bolt, and the story, the series reveals that it's actually a big giant time loop. That's not happening. I think like for those who want that, it's not even like manage your expectations. Put that one all the way on the shelf. It's not. Eric already said that it's going to be a happy ending, and there's not the time loop is not a happy ending.
No. As a comic book fan, I'm like, oh, that would have been cool, a nice little nod, but we've gotten attached to these characters, and at the end of the day, all you have to do is look at the last few seasons to see the like trauma the central couple and all the characters around them have been put through. We don't need to end on some sort of symbolic like cliffhanger that like has a nod and a wink to the comics. That would not be satisfying to someone as who watched 9 seasons of these characters. I'm totally okay with the spoiler that we're getting a happy ending for them, because at this point that's what they deserve.
Mm-hmm. And I think they should be getting that in a way that I hope is satisfying to us. I know that the showrunner said that, but I think what he finds satisfying and what the fandom finds satisfying, especially Westallen shippers, tends to be night and day. So we'll see what the happy ending is. And Joe wants to leave. That's a point that I was confused about in the episode. I don't really see how moving from Central City is going to change the fact that he's in a family full of metahumans who are also superheroes.
Yeah, I didn't get that either, because at the end of the day, they're still going to be in Central City doing their thing. Like, he's not asking Barry to pack up and leave, because he'd just be the Flash somewhere else. So I don't really get that. If he wanted to take a break from it, that's totally understandable. But I don't get the fact that we need to leave Central City because our family is too much at the heart of danger. And like, but your family will still be at the heart of danger whether you leave or not. That didn't really add up. Of course, we know Jesse's not going to be in as many episodes, so that's a way of writing him out. I assume Cecile's going to say, no, we're staying, and then Joe will leave and Cecile won't, because Cecile's still a regular this season. It's an awkward storyline. Couldn't they have sent Joe off an assignment or something instead? I don't know. But it feels like we're going to get about 32 or 3 episodes of Joe wrestling over this. We'll not see him for the rest of the season, and then he'll return in the penultimate one. It was like, I was wrong. You need me here. I'm never leaving again.
Probably. I also wonder, I mean, it's not this type of show, but like the drama of him taking the baby with him. Since she wants to stay in Central City. I mean, they probably wouldn't do that, but it would give Cecile an out, because if Joe's gone and their daughter is still in the house, Cecile can't just go crime fighting the rest of the night. So she would, unless they're gonna do cute babysitting episodes, which no thank you.
I mean, it would give them an excuse not to have baby Jenna on screen, because we haven't seen that child in who knows how long. But Eric made a comment in one of the interviews that suggests, as far as Watch the Space go, that we might see baby Jenna. So it would be hilarious if it was just Joe leaving with the baby and like, oh, finally we get to see her. But I mean, like, I wouldn't put it past them at this point. But I know Cecile needs to go out in the field to prove that she's the most powerful metahuman. So I feel like that would give them that out as far as that goes. She's excited about being a superhero now, so I do think that'll cause conflict with Joe, who wants to leave Central City.
Well, I think so too. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with those 5 episodes that Jesse has. If they do anything of note, I hope so. But with the Flash, you never quite know. It's not like Nancy Drew, where I feel like you go into an episode and you just know the quality is coming, and you just have to sit back and relax, or try to relax, because it's also a lot of tension, and enjoy what they're giving you. So like, and I'm so happy that we did a double feature, by the way. The Nace is on point in both episodes, but I think we should start with Ace and his bonding with Grant.
Yes.
Loved it.
It was so sweet. I'm glad that they just went full steam ahead on that and didn't beat around the bush. I think these 2 episodes were, dare I say, 2 of my favorite of the series. They were so good. They were just so much fun to watch. And I was like invested in the Grant storyline, even though we don't really know him. I loved the montage of him being ignored, though, because it's something that like we've been noticing as viewers throughout, because we've seen all those scenes, but we got to see them from his perspective now, and that was funny. But sad.
I didn't realize it'd only been a week since he got hired. And his little face when like he's like, "Can we have lunch?" And he's just like, "I'll only get 30 minutes." Then proceeds to go over to his crew.
Yeah.
Ace was kind of mean in like not in a mean way, but like just in an Ace way, just being like, "Oh, you need to do this. Oh, you should do this. Oh, I can't do that." He was just very dismissive, and it was his brother was right under his nose the whole time.
And it was quite effective showing it from his perspective, because we've seen Grant quite a few times on the show, and there was one scene where like S was angry and he kind of took out his aggression on Grant. I don't believe that made it into the montage, but it looked like an isolated incident at that point, whereas now you get to see that no, actually S was quite dismissive of Grant the whole time, because he didn't know. And I mean, you can't really blame him like that, but it made you get attached to Grant very, very quickly. And it was nice that there was, as far as I recall, there was no previously on this episode to catch you up. The montage did it all for you. So it was just a very, very effective. I really enjoyed the dynamic between them two right from the beginning.
It was very sweet. And I love how like immediately we're like, well, in the car when Ace initially thinks that his brother comes to him because he's the hero of her shebang. He's like, actually, I just knew you'd be able to get Nancy to help me. So if we could just call her.
And then Nancy just like put everything together in like 15 minutes.
And that's why she's so amazing. And I actually like them as a trio too. They were really good for Shannon Cook to be coming into a show in which the cast had been, under each other, underfoot. I'm like, wait, what am I trying to say? They have been together for a while.
They're bonded.
Yeah, they're bonded, and but he slotted right in with Nancy and Ace, and I just really enjoyed that. Especially like I liked the moments alone with him and Ace, but I also liked his moments with Nancy where she was like trying to get him to see the way that they need to be doing things, even when she was in a panic. I also liked their scenes.
Mm-hmm.
She's really good at caring about new people.
Mm-hmm.
Like she really cares about him, and I think that stems from her caring about Ace. But she also is just like she loves to solve a puzzle, and solving her puzzles helps people, and that's what she really loves doing. And we've seen that growth in her, where maybe it used to be a little bit more selfish, but now she's grown. And I think we get, not to completely diverge off the different path, but we can see her changes, her evolution on screen, right? Because like Nancy's fashion has been elevated and evolved. Like she's in her ascot era with her neck scarves, and she has like different shoes on. She's not wearing the white Vans that get covered in blood and give everything away. Like she's like maturing a little bit, and I like that, the visual of it. It's a really like it's a subtle aspect that you really just pick up on screen, just to see Nancy like looking different, holding herself differently, and expressing herself in a different way.
On the conversation with Nancy and Grant, where they were like trapped in the cave together, I thought that was a great moment, because it was an unusual break. You would have expected that maybe Ace or Grant were the ones that got trapped together, or Nancy and Ace would have been the two that got trapped together. But the fact that we got Nancy and Grant, and they had that moment where they kind of like talked about strategy. I thought Ace was going to go off and get help, but then they figured it out between the three of them themselves. And then you really saw the purpose of that scene, because Nancy was the first one out. She had absolutely no issues going to Ace. And then it was a real like trusting moment between Ace and Grant, where he was like, "I'm your brother. I'm not going to let this fall on you." And then it all did collapse as soon as he got out. But they were very like comfortable with each other very, very quickly. And I feel like the fact that Grant could rely on S to save his life, even though S wasn't as forthcoming when he didn't know who he was, you know what I mean? He trusted that S was a good person, even though S hadn't exactly given the best first impression. Yeah, their dynamic was great, and I feel like Nancy enhanced it.
I like that for that moment, the thing that leads to it, I think for Grant to trust him is right before everything collapses, and Ace is still trying to do like Star Trek, Star Wars, and Grant's like, "Why does it matter?" And he's like, "It's just like I just want to know like your favorite color." And I think that was so very sweet. Like he's just trying to get the cliff notes of his brother in a way that's more than just bonding over trying to save Grant's mom. Which, by the way, I love that the case is still very Ace, because it's the list is trapped in a video game.
Mm-hmm.
I know what you mean. And I feel like that created a lot of like awkwardly funny moments between them. And before we move on, then when I said about Ace taking helping Grant out of the cave, the fact then that they were just kind of like slumped on each other in a heap after that high intensity moment, and then Ace was like, "Which Ninja Turtle were you?" Totally an Ace moment. But yeah, just so, this I feel like, of course, Grant was the star of this episode, but there was so much Ace in there, and that sounds like such a silly thing to say, but I just feel like this was the Ace episode I feel like we've been waiting for, and it was absolutely worth the wait.
It
And
was.
there's so much Nancy and Ace too,
Mhm.
like
Yeah, there is.
subtle. Like they're not really knocking us over the head with it, but they're picking it up a little bit more in these two episodes. And I can't really differentiate 12 and 13, like the Nace of it all. I
Mhm.
don't know what happened in which episode, but I know that they were like really starting to like nudge us and be like, this is happening, and everyone else is picking up on it. They're kind of have weird feelings about it. She has to save his life. Like she's not gonna lose her Ace, which my God. It's like, Nancy girl, don't get any ideas. We're saving Ace.
I want to see the picture that he took of her after they got
Yeah.
done
Yes.
at the farm. Because it surprised her, but she kind of just went on with it. I was like, I really want to see that Polaroid actually, if you could just wave it so we can see. But also, like, besides those small moments, the big moment of her panic, and then the fact that he was shaken basically to his core because she crossed a moral boundary for him, and he wasn't prepared for the weight of that. I don't really know why he thought she was just gonna like not give the list as like, sir, you're about to fall to your death. She's definitely giving this toy over. But I think the thing that really pushed him figuratively over the edge was that she knows she can't trust Celia. And she has no idea what Celia did to make sure all this would turn out okay. But she did it anyway because she can't lose him. I think that's a lot to take in as a person, for your friend to do, and for there to be not so quite subtle romance like in there. Like it was very obvious it has more to do with her romantic feelings for him than it does her friendly feelings for
Mhm.
him.
She was confronted with the trolley problem in the moment, and she was like, I'm seeing Ace right now. I need to save him, and I'll deal with the other people later, which she did at what cost? I mean, it was a big cost that she had to make a deal with the devil, kind of. But it was the trolley problem, and I think for Ace, it was like so clear. It's like, I'm okay with like sacrificing myself to save other people, but she was like, I can do it all. I don't know how, but I'm gonna do it all to save everyone.
And that's what really intrigued me about their dynamic in this episode, because the two of them have had such a unique partnership in that they've kind of accepted each other, flaws and all. Whereas like Nick wanted Nancy to be better and to like learn from her mistakes and grow, whereas Ace just kind of like shrugged and accepted her for who she was. And the fact that now I feel like they've grown to care so much about each other now, that dynamic started to shift, in that Ace kind of like sees her in the same kind of way that Nick almost saw her, that she is capable of being like a better person, a great person at all of this. And then that step backwards really stuck out for him. So if you haven't been watching for Nace, I do feel like this would have been one of the moments where you really started paying attention to it, because of course Nancy was all emotional. She ran over and hugged him and would not let him go. We don't see Nancy hug people that tightly or that show that much emotion. So you know how much she cared about him, but almost Ace's decision to pull away, not physically, but like emotionally pull away a little bit. The fact that he was kind of like shocked by the fact that she'd gone to the dark side for help. You can definitely see the threads here for Nace in the future. And I think that made the episode really shine. Both of them. It's funny, every time you pick a double parter, it always feels like part one and part two of the same story. And this one definitely felt like that.
Yes, moving into episode 13, we're dealing with the aftermath of the deal that Nancy made,
Mhm.
in which she had to walk back. She recanted her statement, which then turned the town against her. And it's interesting that that's when we get Gil back. And what she
Mhm.
tends to do, she tends to hide in the relationship she has when how she sees herself doesn't fit what's actually going on in her reality. So I wasn't necessarily surprised to see him, though they're very sweet with their little head touch they did. I was like, I'm still here for Nace, but that little moment was cute.
Yeah.
Um, but it's you can tell she's ashamed but like she can kind of just hide there with Gil. But the moment she sees Ace, which by the way, she was in a bomb outfit. Love that outfit she was in. Like the awkwardness and the shame around what had happened, and a little bit of insecurity over him seeing her with Gil after he had already told her that wasn't a good idea. That was interesting to see. Even she gave into the kiss with Gil, but she didn't quite like doing that in front of Ace. Also, she was jealous this episode, which I appreciated seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we always say the show's been very subtle about it, but the fact that it lingered on us watching them kiss right before the opening sequence, there was nothing subtle about that, because obviously the pre-opening sequence is supposed to be a teaser of what's to come, and the fact that we had an adventure planned out, we had Nancy's reputation called into question, all of these interesting things going on, and yet it decided to hone in on us looking at them. You can't deny that. And what's really interesting is that, again, S always accepted her flaws and all, whereas he seems concerned about the time she's spending with Gil, because Gil kind of accepts her with going to the dark side in the way that S almost used to. But I feel like S kind of cares about her so much now. He wants what's best for her, and he can clearly see that Gil isn't that. We did learn throughout this episode that Gil isn't the best person to be around for anybody, to be honest.
And even Amanda is picking up on it on the Ace side. Like when they were listening into the safe, she's like, they're really connected on the same wavelength. What am I doing here? Even though Nancy and Ace in that moment, like their personal relationship isn't rock solid, because they're, he feels some kind of way. She's kind of like, I think naturally just pulling away from him, because she's like, oh, you're with Amanda, and oh, you're mad at me. But like at the end of the day, they still come together and they have this connection that I truly don't even think they're starting to, but I don't think they know what it is. And that's what makes this kind of like, this is the art of a will they or won't they. Like, I know I've said with Wendy, like it's the show, the show just makes me so excited to watch TV, because I'm like, oh, this is television. In these 2 episodes of Nancy Drew, like, it's just like chef's kiss. Like, this is why I love television, these 2 episodes. Like, if you're studying to write this kind of show, watch these 2 episodes. Like, these are like, the scripts were so good, the acting was so good. Don't think I'm not gonna praise Kennedy up and down in a couple of minutes here. And like the director, everything was so good about these episodes. It was so tight. They knew what they were doing. They knew the stories they were telling. Not a second was wasted. Not a second was like, did I think too much was happening? Like, it was just, these 2 episodes were so perfect. And I think 13 really, for me, might be it's going to be hard to beat this episode. It was just so good. I even loved the like story of the week plot where they're like helping this little girl who looked like Alexis Bledel, by the way. Did you guys get that?
I was trying to figure out who she reminded me of, but I couldn't land on a person.
I was like, Rory Gilmore, is that you? But yeah, I thought this episode was so special. Even like, I think sometimes fans can get frustrated when you're like, oh, the Nace is right there. It's in the palm of our hands. But there's something still so special about those episodes where they're not together yet. As frustrating as it can be, it's just like, it's so magical to see the beginnings of this. And I feel like I can't put it exactly explain the way it made me feel, but it just made me it was electric. I just felt so good to watch the beginnings of this happening so subtly. Like, they're really like, the payoff is happening, and it's so exciting to watch.
And it definitely feels like they've kind of changed pace as far as it's gone into the middle of season 2, because subtle is the word we use when we talk about Nace. We've been singing the praises for the last season and a half, saying about how it's been so subtle, but they've definitely turned the dial up a little bit by having other characters notice it, and by having a few quirky moments between the 2 that you can't not notice. For example, when George and Bess were talking about Amanda, and Nancy's just in the background and says she's competent, and the little like smirk the 2 of them have at each other. I was like, wait, they know what's going on as well.
I love that.
It was so funny. I think part of me feels like Nancy knows a little about how she feels. I just don't. It's the
she
way
might not
she
be like
gazes.
willing. She might not be willing to like be that vulnerable, because I feel like she knows somewhere deep down, like, this is different, right? This is different than anything she's felt, and I think that scares her. And she may not be fully into that realization, where it might be more obvious to the people around her. and us, like, we can see it, but I don't think she's willing to tap into that 'cause she's busy. She's got stuff to do. She can't deal with that.
Well, that, and he's like her like right hand person. Like out of everybody, he seems to understand her best, for the full spectrum of who she is. And they connect in a way that she doesn't quite connect with the rest of her friends. She loves all of them, but there's just a connection she has with Ace that is definitely growing, that is different, and that she appreciates. And perhaps that's why she gazes all the time. But I think she gazed in both episodes. It was just like, I need someone like record her and play back the video. But I think what makes Nace special is that it's the type of relationship that does transcend romance. They're the two types of characters that would really want to be in each other's lives, regardless of the status of their relationship. And I think that is something that Nancy needs and didn't always trust. That, like, regardless of where things land, I will always have this person. Just to get on my Drusen for like 1 second.
I was about to bring it up too, so thank you.
I do think her relationship with Nick actually is going to be the thing that makes her comfortable with attempting with Ace. I say that because she's learned how you can mess up a relationship and still maintain a friendship, and that might be something that's possible for her with Ace. But I also love that Drusen has grown into a friendship in which they can speak with one another and open up with each other, and Nick can say how he feels and recognize that he's losing Nancy, and keep an eye on her. Like, I love how this show has managed to navigate their romance, their falling out, their work towards friendship, and then actually being in a friendship that's very important to the both of them, to the point where he's like, girl, the white beanie's not going to make up for the fact that Cecilia is not a person you should trust. But I love the beanie watch for episode 13, though. I truly do.
Two things. I love that scene with Nick and Nancy because I don't know. It warms my heart so much because, as you know, I'm team Ace all the way, and I love Nick too. Obviously, I think two of the best written male characters I've ever seen. Beside the point, but that scene was so special because it feels like you could see the comfort that Nancy has with him, and she's opened herself up to that. Like, she knows that he's the person she can go to hear the hard stuff, and he's not gonna cater to her and tell her what she wants to hear. Like, he's that warmth. Like, she feels comfortable with him, and I just loved seeing that and the way that's gonna evolve. And the beanie, I screamed because we've had Beanie Watch has been dry, but when it came back, I was like, oh, so the beanie is important. It's an important motif, and the fact that it's white while she's like going to the dark side is like, I need like an entire day to write a dissertation on what the symbolism, because it's so rich. And I also want to say, because I feel like this is something else that would get really frustrating for people when you see like your hero kind of like get a little darker, like have a little moral gray area. That's another thing that gets me so excited about watching television, is like sometimes it doesn't always like feel good in the moment. You get frustrated, but I think it's recognizing that if something makes you feel something either way, that's good. And being like frustrated and like yelling at the screen like, Nancy, no, girl, don't do that. I'm excited to watch TV like this. It reminds me of old school like TV, when like you get a season where the good character like goes a little bad and all her friends are like, what's going on with this girl? She's a hot mess. So I'm like excited to get to see not just Nancy but Kennedy play in this area and like grapple with her family. Like, these are her roots, and Nancy's kind of been like pushing that to the side. And she saw a different side of her grandmother, and she wants to believe that, because I think something that we learned more so in this like story of the week, or the mystery of the week, is that she has like all that trauma, right? And she like needs to find somewhere to put it, and she has these people that she's related to by blood, and it's natural to want to explore that, as bad as you think they are. And I think that's something that Bess dealt with too. Like, dealing with the Marvins. But yeah, I think I lost the thread just getting really waxing poetic about this episode.
But you're so right. I feel the same way that it's Nancy has been such a complex character the whole way through, and she's done like questionable things, but her heart has always been in the right place. And now she's really conflicted over the fact that she might actually want to get to know people she's had no emotional investment in before, because all she saw was the bad stuff that they did. And ever since she had that nice time with Celia when her memory was wiped, and the fact that Celia's still making an effort now, even when she's got all of her memories back, really says a lot to Nancy. But isn't it that old trope that you say the best way to hide something from a detective is to put it right under their nose? And you're like, is Nancy missing the obvious here, that these people will always be bad people? Just like, maybe is she missing the obvious with S because it's right there and she doesn't want to change it or to investigate it? Or is she choosing to look away so that she can have a relationship with these people? And I think that really will play into her arc for, I don't know whether it's just the remainder of this season or the series, but heck of an arc, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
It is, and it's such a good parallel to what happened with Ace. Like, so in episode 12, his father doesn't notice that Grant is his son, and he wouldn't. But like when they have that ending scene, first meeting, and he says, "You look just like your mom," it's because his eyes open up to who this young man is to him. With Nancy, she didn't care about the Hudsons until she found out that she is one of them by blood, and now it's complicating things, it's muddling things, it's confusing her. And on top of that, she's a grieving young woman. She still misses her mom. Outside of Celia now, she didn't have a strong female figure in her life. There are her two dads, and that's about it. So I think it's nice for her to have an older woman who embraces her, who wants to see her, who talks about how nice it is that they get to sit down together. She's giving her a gift. She's making her feel welcome. She wants to be accepted by the Hudsons. And that's like a very complicated, complex, not great feeling. It doesn't even really quite make sense, but it's human. Like, even if she was the one who eventually like rejects them, she wants them to accept her. Not Everett, she don't care about Everett, but like Celia and I guess to some extent Ryan.
And Nick calls Ryan at the end. It's like, we lost her.
No.
Nick, you're a little dramatic. I mean, it just she walked out with a beanie on. We haven't reached the full extent, but I appreciate that you're I appreciate that you're on top of it, Nick.
It's so great. But he is quite the king of drama. Good for him, though. It's the type of thing they do here. What else happened in this? Odette. What do you want to do?
Odette. Okay, I quickly, before we get into Odette, because I feel like that's going to be an interesting conversation. I did want to talk about the scene on the dock between Nancy and Birdie. Like, that was like, where was Kennedy's Emmy? Like, that was, I was so moved. I was like, and like even the girl that played Birdie, I didn't look up her name, I'm so sorry, but she was amazing, stellar. Like, that, I was so moved by that speech that Nancy gave, and it brought home there's a common theme in each of the stories that Nancy gets to tell. Like, all the mysteries that she solves, there's a underlying layer of trauma that she relates to, and I think with each one it helps her grow, and it helps her like relay the lesson to whoever she's helping. Like the episode with the college girl, like that was another moving episode where she gets to talk one-on-one with somebody that she helped. And oh my god, that scene, I just love Kennedy, guys. Like, that scene, blown away.
The emotional ramping up of that moment, where it starts off as a way to connect with this young girl and then turns into basically the speech Nancy wants to give to herself.
Yeah. She's like pleading, not just with Birdie, but like with herself. She's pleading. She's like, you like, just think about it. Just like, listen to this. And it's like, Nancy, look in the mirror.
I know. And it's just like the Fire Souls are not the Hudsons. It's not analogous, but it's just she's going through so much, and the ways in which the writers have her unpack her feelings with people, that thing, when you can unpack them with strangers, and the way you can't unpack them with your loved ones because it's just so raw and vulnerable. I love when it's like, you know what, we need to crack Nancy open. So let's write a whole story where she gets to do that towards the end with the person that she's helping that week. And Kennedy's like, I'm on it. I got it. I know the assignment. And she gives such a stellar performance. Again, the hidden gem of the CW. Really and truly.
Amazing.
Okay, circle back to Odette. It's weird. It's weird, but why am I kind of like down for the ride? Like I'm willing to ride it out. I'm not willing for them to like really lean into Bess falling in love or doing anything physical with Odette because I think that crosses a line. That was I was kind of like, I don't know, I just enjoyed watching it. I thought it was fun. And I did kind of appreciate that George and Odette were like communicating. I think it gave a different shade of the storyline because I think we were like fatigued of the switching. Like do something else, and they did something else, and I thought it was successful. But I as much as I was kind of okay with it in these episodes, I'm ready for them to find a solution. I'm ready to say goodbye.
Yeah, it definitely feels like they're running out of room to run on with the story. But I did say that it feels like by the end of the run, Odette and George will have found some kind of like common ground, whether she's a fully fledged member of the Drew crew, we'll say. But I'm glad that they finally have found that common ground. And it was kind of like downplayed, like it was as though it was that easy. And they're looking after each other, so to speak, and they're understanding each other now, which is nice. But on the other hand of it, then you have the actual conflict with how Odette seems to feel about Bess. And how will that line up with now that George has made a promise to Odette that maybe they can find her love as a ghost? So there's a lot of interesting dynamics, but I completely agree with you, Reed. I don't want to root for Bess and Odette, but they're doing such a good job of making you want to. You're there for them. You're invested in their friendship, relationship, whatever it turns into. But at the same time, you know it can't go any further than that. And I'm hoping that they don't make Bess do that because obviously she's come so far as a character, and that I don't want her to take that step backwards.
I don't know if I like the explanation that she gave, where she was like, "I'm just looking for something to fill a hole," and I'm like, I don't know if this has anything to do with the Marvins or Elizabeth leaving you. I think it's okay to have a weird crush on the ghost living inside your friend's body. Like, I don't know. Like, you don't need to make it a thing.
I think I feel a little differently, not necessarily that being the reasoning, but the awareness that Bess has. You don't really get her having scenes in which she talks about her destructive behavior outside of the kleptomania, because she's willing to talk about that. But like as far as like the emotional, she kind of shies away from it unless something terrible happens, which I guess she opened up when it happened to do with Elizabeth and leaving her at the table instead of going to go meet the parents like she was supposed to. So now, you know, she says she makes bad decisions because she wants to be loved. And it's like, but you are loved by your friend group. Like, where's Ace? So we need he should have said it when she was panicking the first time. Because they're her family. And I think that's where they need to land on. I mean, I'm sure it's nice though, receiving those love letters from Odette and receiving Odette's attention. And when she hasn't really gotten attention outside of her family group. So I get that. But I just feel like we are running out of room when it comes to where the story could possibly go. So I am glad that George said, no, we'll try to find your lady love. We'll find the English woman. Does she have a name, by the way?
I can't remember. I think Odette has said it, but I don't remember if they've actually.
Was it Mary? I think
it might have been.
It might be Mary.
Yeah, there's too many Marys on the CW.
But yeah, I think the Odette and Bess weirdness will go away soon. I too am weirdly kind of about it, like that in a line crossing way. Just the weird tension of it. The not the will they won't they, but navigating that line of we're not really a friendship, we're not really a romance, but I like you and I want to spend time with you.
They found a way to get around, because these shows all the time, they have these friend groups and they all date each other, and we already kind of have that, but it's another way to add a different dynamic to two characters without really doing it, which I think they can get away with on a ghost show. And I think it's really original. Well, maybe it's not super original. I feel like somebody has to have done this before. But they're pulling it off really well to like mix up the dynamics, to be able to have Madison and Leah act together in a different way. It's fun. I'm sure it's a fun way for them as actors to perform differently. And even though we may not like it, I think it's still like fun to watch. Like I don't want it to happen, but I'm like, I'm down. Like this is exciting storytelling.
And we end episode 13 with Nancy didn't really go full Hudson like Nick was making it out to be, but
she put the beanie on. She speaks volumes with her beanies.
That's true, but she did also tell Nick that they're on the same side, and he was surprised by that, which was interesting. And I was like, she's probably gonna try to walk the line, and it's not gonna work. But she's not gonna abandon you, Nick, for the Hudsons. Not them of all people. Cecilia, you might have to watch out for though.
Yeah, she's walking a moral tightrope between her friends and her new quote unquote family.
And she's willing to, make her friends not so happy about it. Or just like she's pushing Ace away because she doesn't want to hear about how Gil is not great for her. And she can't really handle the fact that Ace is mad at her. And he's like, I was like, girl, he don't even really tell you when he's bothered. And he's trying to express to you that like you're not making healthy decisions. She's like, I'm going to be unhealthy. It's just what's going to be.
Yeah. Was that scene between Nancy and Ace, was that in 13 where she's like, she doesn't really look at him and he's kind of like trying to like talk to her, and they like the way he walked away from her. I was like, oh, I know, I hate it, but I also like this is great content.
Excellent writing. Always cannot wait to see how this transforms as we move closer towards the end of the season. And I don't think we get the Nace in this season. The Nace is coming, but we shall see.
But I love the build up.
The slow burn, yeah.
It's delicious.
The tension. It's good.
Other CW shows, take note. Please. But that's it for what we're watching. And we don't have a toast this week. We do have
I'll toast Kennedy.
Oh, yes. Floor's yours.
Yes. Kennedy. Once again, girl. Hats off. Beanies off. I mean, I don't know what else I could say that I haven't already said, but yeah, she blew me away in episode 13.
She was incredible.
Masterclass. And just truly, I'm gonna love her in The Good Lawyer. Just
oh my god.
Cannot wait. March 6th. Get here faster.
Yeah.
Okay, the roast.
The roast. Okay, so this has to do with programming on the CW, mainly like the Winchesters schedule and how everything we're moving again. Like, so instead of it being at 9 p.m. on Tuesdays, it's moving back to the 8 p.m. slot starting February 21st. There was no reason given. We're assuming that the CW realized, hey, airing an encore episode in the prime slot ahead of a new episode wasn't a good decision.
I've got nothing. I can't even trace their steps. Well, here, let me attempt to. They thought they could hold out this Tuesday night slot while they had no content, so they thought, oh, well, we'll make people wait to watch the Winchesters and watch the old one. And now this is like them holding their hands up in defeat. It's like, sorry, guys, didn't work. Everything's back to normal. Like, what was the point in that? Like, we're not TV executives and we knew it was a bad idea. Everyone online knew it was a bad idea. People who didn't want to wait an extra hour for the Winchesters knew it was a bad idea. The ratings were already on their way down and now they're worse. And I don't know if changing them back now for all of 2 or 3 episodes will repair them, especially as it happens after a 1 week hiatus. So just what was the point in that? This show, is it the first or second most watched scripted broadcast of the season? Its pilot episode was, and now they have single-handedly sabotaged it. I don't know. Yeah. It'll be lucky if it stays above 200,000 or 300,000 at this rate, because the ratings are not good, and they are moving it completely around the schedule has not helped in the slightest.
No,
it reeks of sabotage, whether accidental. I'm sure, in my heart, I want to believe that no network is going to be like, let's, tank this. But it's just textbook. Like, you can't do that to a show. And airing 2 episodes of the same show, it's not the optics aren't great. It shows a lack of faith in the show, I think. And at this point, I don't know. I don't think it has. I don't want people to think like I'm hating on the Winchesters for this. This is completely the scheduling. Like, they didn't, after the initial success, they tried to coast and it did not. Like, they need to put a little bit more effort into it. Like, leaving it out there in the wild on its own, unhelpful. Taking random weeks off, unhelpful. Airing against the president, unhelpful. Like, I don't know. What are they up to? What are they doing?
You just would not do this to a freshman's show. They don't have.
It doesn't have the legs. It doesn't have the.
The whole point of season 1 is to gain an audience, but like if we're going on hiatuses in a way that feels random, if we're coming back at a new time slot with no new lead-in, it's an old episode airing before it. If we're moving back to the previous time slot towards the end of the season, it's like, did you want it to succeed? I felt like we did in the beginning, and then it didn't hit the notes it was supposed to. And they're like, yeah, you know what? I mean, do what we need to do. Now, this, of course, could just be an issue of them trying to figure out how they want to schedule things. But this only happened to the Winchesters. It didn't happen to anything else.
I just don't want to be sitting here in a few weeks' time saying the Winchesters deserved better. But I think that's what we're going to be doing.
I think so, too. And I think everyone who watches it still and loves it or wants more for it has kind of just accepted that season 2 would may not be coming. Like, it'd be like a savings grace, like 11th hour decision sort of thing, just because of how it's been scheduled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, literally no help was given.
Nope. Well, not to end on a sour note.
I know. Maybe we should have saved the Kennedy part.
Yeah, toasting on the Kennedy.
Yeah, okay, you know what? Like, raise the mug. A CW queen. We'll end on that.
Yeah. Keep the positives.
And we're so sure that final season of Nancy Drew was going to be absolute amazingness. And she's going to bring it.
Yes.
Almost, well, not even really almost there, but we're getting there.
We got a ton of episodes to keep us until then, and that's a good thing.
That's true. All right, well, that is it for this pod episode. We're the CW Spiral. I'm Sabrina.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Reed.
Bye, y'all.